So you and I have a similar mission, and it seems that the timing of this book was very magical, as a lot of people, our community, are all needing more surrender because life just seems to be a little bit going in directions that we all didn't plan for. I get dozens and dozens of emails of people, of podcast guests, but there was something about your title, The Magic of Surrender, and then the energy of you when I clicked on it that I just said yes to. And then reading your book, it's like a soul calling. Anyone who loves soul energy, and I think soul energy operates very differently than the doing, and control energy. But there was so much magic to you and to your book.
It takes energy. It takes courage. It takes commitment. A hunger to live life at another level. A life of true fulfillment. Welcome to the Extraordinary Living Podcast, where Jackie Senatori interviews leading experts from around the world, extracting their wisdom, giving you the tools, tips, and tricks on how to go from ordinary to extraordinary. Get ready to start living a healthier and more empowered life. Here she is, your host, Jackie Senatori.
Kute Blackson is a beloved international speaker and transformational teacher. He speaks at countless events that he organizes around the world, as well as outside events including A-Fest, YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization, and EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. He is a member of the Transformational Leadership Council, a select group of 100 of the world's foremost authorities in the personal development industry. He is the winner of the 2019 Unity New Thought Walden Award, and is widely considered the next generation leader in the field of personal development. His mission is to awaken and inspire people across the planet to access inner freedom, live authentically, and fulfill their true life's purpose. Welcome, Kute, to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So surrender is the key to life and the key to freedom. One of the things that I think when you offer people wanting that freedom, and it seems that the way to get that freedom and the key to life unfolding for you in a bigger way is surrender.
Surrender is the foundation. Surrender is the key, for sure. Yeah, it's the password.
So for anyone listening, I hope you're ready. So I invite you to get a pen and paper, because if you've been looking for answers lately and you're listening to this right now, there's probably a reason for it. So here we go. So I just want to ask first, what does surrender mean to you? Because when people hear that, they have their own story about it, or everybody has their own definition of it. Yeah. And then what led you down the path of learning about it, and then how to do it most importantly?
Yeah, first I'll just say that the book was not, this was not the book I thought I was going to write. And this was not the book I wanted to write. I had my own intentions, my own agenda, my own ideas of a book I thought I should write, what I thought I should do. And I wrote probably 100 clever ideas on a whiteboard of things I thought would be bestsellers, and none of them resonated. None of them were really authentic, were aligned. I didn't feel any of them in my gut, in my soul, with integrity. And the only word of literally 100 that stood out was the word surrender. And I thought, oh shit, this is the book. But I thought, I don't want this to be the book, because, we all resist surrender. We know we should, but we don't. And so, people want to read it. And then I had to surrender to the book about surrender. And when I did, everything flowed, everything unfolded. And so I think in our culture, there is this idea or this misconception that surrender is weak, surrender is passive, that if that surrender means giving up or waving the white flag, that if you surrender, you're going to be left behind, you're going to be a doormat, you're going to be trodden on, a victim, taken advantage of, that you won't manifest your goals, dreams, and desires. So we see surrender as this negative thing. And I really want to reframe surrender as an active, magnificent, uplifting, inspiring possibility and invitation that, what if you surrendered and you didn't get less than? Things didn't go bad. What if you surrendered and you actually got more than you could even have planned and intended and projected and willed yourself into from the limited perspective of your ego, of your mind's capacity to imagine what's possible. And so surrender is a going beyond. Surrender is a letting go of, I was going to say control, but let's say the illusion that we're in control. I think control is a master addiction. And I think if the last few years have shown us or reminded us of anything, that perhaps we're not as in control as we thought. And so surrender is a letting go of this illusion of control. It's a letting go of trying to force and manipulate life to fit our limited idea of how we think it should be. And it's a letting go of the idea of who we think we should be and how we think life should be, so that we can take the limits off of life and be open and be available to life and the authentic energy, the authentic impulse, the authentic life that is seeking to unfold. And so I think when we surrender, we're available, we're open, we allow life to lead us. If you look at the truly great ones that were possibilities for us as human beings, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mandela, Martin Luther King, Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee, they all surrendered themselves to life, to the universe, to the divine, to their soul's deep intention, to their purpose that was bigger than themselves. And I think with each of them, in that surrender, they transcended their own self-focus. They transcended their own human limitations, and they tapped into like another dimension of potential, and life was able to come through them and move through them and use them. And so I really feel that surrender is the key to our next level. It's the key to like that next level of manifestation. And as I said, it's the password to freedom. Like we all want that more, right? We all want the magic and the miracles, but like few of us want to actually surrender. And there is no magic. And when I say magic, I'm talking about like that which is beyond what we can imagine, the amazingness that we hear in the books and, you know, the movies and people manifesting like, I want that. But yeah, we have to be willing to surrender. And so I think it's I want people to be excited about the possibility of surrender, because I think that's when we're truly available and open and willing to receive. And that's when life reveals its grace and blessings. I think the old paradigm was all about, or was most focused on the sort of ego-based model of trying to manifest, make your life happen. So you have to know what you want, got to know what you want. Nothing wrong with that. And I think you can manifest a good life, but often it will be limited because we don't really question and ask who is the I that is deciding who am I? Right. You know, and so sometimes we manifest what we thought we wanted only to realize that what I thought I wanted was what I thought I wanted based on who I thought I was, but it's not really what I truly wanted. And many times our goals and intentions can be projections, you know, of unmet needs from childhood, right? And so in surrender, I like to invite people to ask a different question. And that question really becomes, not what do I want, from a limited mindset of the ego, and the ego's capacity to perceive possibilities is limited to our current level of consciousness and conditioning, which is rooted in the past. So we're not able to see the infinite possibilities from the perspective of the ego. And so the question becomes, what is it that life is seeking to express through me? What is it that the universe is seeking to express through me? What is it that my soul, what is the deepest impulse of what life is seeking to express through me? And to really attune to that, feel that, and like sense what that is. Because I think when we truly do that, the intention and our goals are not arising from ego or limitation. It's arising from a deeper, infinite place inside of us. And when we can align with that and then align our actions and our strategy and our planning with that authentic impulse, then we're in the flow. And to me, that's really part of what surrender is. Anyway, I'll leave it. I'll stop there.
I could listen to it all day because it's such a good reminder, of things that sometimes we even know, but when it's our own river and our own flow, control or wanting to take action, all of those things, it feels safer than it feels easier sometimes to work and do all day than it is to just like, hey, I know you've been going down that path for a long time for what you said, maybe because you always thought you were going to become this or do this, or you've been on this road for so long, just to stop, reflect, and lose that identity is what you're referring to. I think a lot of just, if I don't have this, who am I? And a lot of people are terrified to feel that for even a second, because then unknown is more scary than, at least if I'm doing something wrong, at least I feel more safe doing it than. I'm going to share this with you. Reading your book, a team member of mine and a friend of mine, we got it. We're like, okay, we're going to spend the day reading it. And then up to chapter 3, I stopped and I had this like mini breakthrough end of chapter 3 of this. I know that's not working, reorganizing things. And I had a good reorganization for about a week. She's like, keep reading. It gets like, don't blow up your life yet. And I did. I full on was like, the timing of this was epic. It's that going with the river. So
yeah.
How do you, because sometimes we can see it in other people's lives easier, but you for yourself, I would love to get excited about surrender, like you said, but is it more of just knowing, okay, here I am again at a crossroads. Like, how can I trust surrender more? Like, what do you do when you want to push for something still? Because isn't that kind of our way of being? And then you realize, I got to stop. And
I think you can start to observe the contraction in your body and start to observe the internal, let's call it pain that arises. And many times that pain, that hurt, that frustration, pain is a sign that we are resisting. We are not going with the flow of life, going with the unfolding of life. If we look at some of the best things that have happened to us in our lives, and we take a step back and look, most of it we didn't plan. Most of it we didn't write down. Most of it, like meeting your soulmate, meeting my wife, meeting your husband, meeting, that it just kind of like happened in the process of life and living life. And so I think there is an intelligence. And sometimes people say, well, how do I trust? How do I trust life? How do I trust? I say, yeah, but how do you not freaking trust life? Every day life shows up. Every day there is the sun. Every day there is the moon. Every day you're breathing. We eat food. The food digests. How is it that our body doesn't turn into a chicken or a kale? Or there is an intelligence, right, inside of us that we kind of somehow forget that there is an intelligence that is digesting our food without our even conscious control. You and I are not sitting here going, breathe. I have to do a special breath. It's just, we are being breathed. It's happening. And so there are trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of cells that are being processed inside of me, inside of you, inside of 8 billion people. Then all the species, all of existence is just unfolding. And yet somehow we don't trust. And so I think if we can just bring ourselves into awareness and relationship with the body and observe nature and see how so much of life is proof, like life is showing us every day that we can trust it, but somehow we're focused on other things. And so what I would say, and first I want to say this too. There's this idea that surrender is like, it's so hard. It's so difficult. And we keep telling ourselves this story and it's so, oh my God, it can feel difficult. I will acknowledge that.
You talked about grief too. It's like you have to have a certain go through when you've been going somewhere so long or you want what you spoke about of you met someone at that time, you didn't expect it. How do you not want to want something?
Look, sometimes not getting what you want is the biggest blessing. And sometimes not getting what you thought you wanted is grace. And so when we look back, let's all look back at our life let's pick a relationship. I think we've all had this experience where we met that person and we were sure this is my person. This is the one. And you couldn't imagine not being with them, and they're your soulmate, and you saw them in the stars and the heavens, and you started planning out your life, and sure enough, it didn't work out. And you were heartbroken and disappointed and couldn't believe it and never thought you'd find love again. And sure enough, we got over it. And if we look back now, maybe 2, 3, 5, 10 years later, when I look back at a certain situation, I go, what the hell was it like?
Thank God.
Thank God that didn't happen. So many times in the moment of something not working out, from the perspective of the ego, it might seem like the worst thing in that moment because the ego can't see the whole possibilities. But now from a different perspective, we see, wow, there was an intelligence. And if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have had to move back home into my parents' house, and I wouldn't have gone down the street and met my husband or found my business partner. And so I think it's just like surrender is our natural state. Let me say that. Mm-hmm. Surrender is natural. And I'm actually going to propose that surrender is easy. What's hard is resisting and holding on. It's just that we've been conditioned to resist and hold on. So for those that are listening to me, I'm holding a pen right now, making a fist. Now I'm holding this pen, tightening this pen, holding on. If I do this long enough, it starts feeling natural to hold on. But if I said let go, I mean, how easy is that? To me, that's how surrender is. It's our natural state. If you look at a child is surrendered. Especially before the condition, they're born free. They're in touch with, they cry when they feel like crying. They flow when they feel like flowing. They dance when they feel, they'll run naked through, the living room, and they don't care if they're fat. They're not resisting. They'll give you a hug. They'll sing at the top of their lungs. They're in the flow. They'll hit their head. They'll cry. Then they're over it, And so what happens? The first thing is we're born, we meet our parents. The conditioning process begins. And this is how we start to lose touch with surrender. I think the first thing that happens is we meet our parents, and our parents, they're just doing the best that they can do based on their childhood and their programming and their upbringing. So 2 things happen. The first thing is we learn to shut down, disconnect, and not feel. We start suppressing our feelings, suppressing our emotions, and we start erecting walls around our heart in order to not feel the dysfunction, the pain, the trauma. Right. Our parents aren't around. And so we now start a mechanism of learning how to control our feelings to navigate and manage the pain. This is where control starts. Good intention. And so ego starts getting developed as a mechanism of control. And then we learn a way of being, also the sense of who do I need to be in order to get love and validation and approval. So we start contorting ourselves into a shape to get love, validation, approval from mom, from dad, our caretakers. And this version of ourselves that we becomes who we think we are. We identify with this so tightly that it limits us. And so this is ego. What resists surrender is ego. We've been conditioned to believe that we are the ego. Ego is not a thing. It is a programmed set pattern of conditioned responses that we identify with. And the job of the ego is to reinforce its existence. And the job of the ego is to protect us, to make sure that we don't get hurt again. And so the reason we resist surrender as a form of control, as a form of trying to control everything, because if I can control everything around me, I'm not going to get hurt again. If I can try to figure everything out in my life, then I can minimize risk and not get hurt again. So when we can understand the nature of something, we can start shifting our relationship with it and go, oh, the pattern of resistance, the pattern of what fights life and doesn't surrender isn't bad. It's just fear. And it's ego trying to protect me from getting hurt. When we can recognize that, I think what we can begin doing is even becoming aware and surrendering to the fact that we might not even be surrendered right now, and start to develop a relationship with our own internal resistance and hold it with compassion and hold it with love. And what I found is when we can hold our resistance, our ego, when we can hold it with love, knowing it's not what we are, without resistance, with love, with compassion, with sensitivity, with empathy, then our own egoic resistance can relax.
And ego is the same as like identity, right? Of losing your identity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ego is the sense. Ego is not a thing. It's a process of identification.
Yes.
The way we identify ourselves as me, as Kute, as Jackie, as Susie, as John. This is who I am based on my beliefs, my religion, my story, my experience, my past, my history. Me. This is me.
Yes.
People often say, this is just who I am. And so when we talk about surrender, for the ego, our perceived sense of self, it feels like a death.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we resist, because it requires that we let go of that belief. We let go of that story. We let go of that perception. We let go of who we thought we were. And so the ego is terrified by the idea of surrender, because we think we're going to die because we believe we are the ego.
Right.
And I'm actually saying we're not. Ego is a process of identification. And so it's ego that resists. And so when we can not fight that and just meet ego with loving, like with compassion. Like, yeah, I get it. I understand you're afraid. I'm not surrendered right now, and it's okay. And just hold ourselves with that love and that understanding and that compassion. Surrender can begin unfolding and happening. Yeah. And so surrender is a death in a certain way to who we thought we were. It's a death to a dream, a death to an idea. And so you mentioned it, and I'm glad you brought this up. One of the keys to surrendering, and this is one thing I've seen as to why we sometimes don't crack open to that full-blown surrender of open-hearted. To me, so like there is acceptance, but acceptance isn't surrender. And surrender is that open-hearted participation with whatever's happening. It's like, I'm going to roll my sleeves up and okay, whatever's happening is happening for my highest good. And I'm going to work with it. I'm going to run in the rain and make the best of this, versus acceptance is raining. I'm a little pissed off it's raining. I'll deal with it. I'll accept it, but I'm freaking mad that it's raining, but it is what it is. So there's a difference. And so in the phase that we often miss, that is a key doorway to surrender, is grieving.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, we miss the process of allowing ourselves to grieve who we were, to grieve what was. Sometimes moving from being a single person to being, married can be, there's sometimes grieving necessary. Moving from 20s to 30s to 40s to 50s, different age stages, there's grieving necessary. And so I think we're a culture that we're not taught how to grieve. And we often resist the process of grieving because we're afraid that we won't be able to handle it. We're afraid that it will be too much and overwhelming. Or we want to kind of stay in what we think of as a kind of high spiritual, vibrational state, the law of attraction. And I don't want to acknowledge my grief, but not realizing, but what we don't acknowledge, we just perpetuate and it just stays stuck. And so I think what's so important is if we're able to honor our grief and feel our grief and release our grief, whether it's heartbreak, whether it's sadness, whether it's whatever that grief is, then we can release the old. That's what allows us to open truly to the new.
Make space for that new to come in. I think of divorce in this, divorce sometimes it's like, it's connected to all areas, our family, our kids, our money, our friends. And when that changes, it's a really hard shift. But once you grieve that and you shift it, all of a sudden then it could become, like you said, if you don't numb from it or run from it or stay because the change is too hard, if you go through that transformation, I think then you realize like how much more was meant to come in for you, or now it's almost like a second half of your life or a different life that you can bring in. I'm curious to know that you speak in the book, and for a lot of people that have that calling, that hunger similar to what you describe, that really wanting to make a difference, or they are making a difference. They have a gift, but it's not stuck, but it's not being packaged well, or they're not quite sure what to do. And so they find themselves, okay, I'm going to surrender. I know it's not this job. I know it wasn't going down ads or YouTube or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And they let that go and surrender that part. And now they're in the in-between phase of what's next, I have a lot of people that say, like, what am I supposed to do? Just stay home, do the dishes? Like, what am I supposed to do? In the interim of old shell to new coming.
Cool. I think in the interim, a couple of things I would say is that willingness to totally like the next level of your life will require the next level of you, which will require that you release what is not aligned. Mm-hmm. And so in an interim, I would invite people to release whatever is not aligned, whatever is no longer a vibrational match, to courageously release it. One way is begin telling the radical truth to yourself about who you are and what you feel. Start acknowledging what's true, what's not true, and start releasing what's not aligned so that you can create space. And the more space you can create in that interim, that space becomes an invitation for new possibilities. The other thing is I would invite people to use that interim time to be still and listen, to be still and allow yourself to receive, not from your mind. Many times we're afraid of that interim, because we're afraid of, the ego is afraid, like, if I don't do anything, it won't happen. And really, the ego's job is to reinforce its existence. And so one of the ways the ego reinforces existence is by being busy and being busy. And so many times in the interim, we're afraid of the darkness, the abyss, the unknown. And so we often act out of fear. And when we act out of fear, we sometimes act out of doing something to do it, even though it's not authentic. And then we create more of the same of the old, more of the old, more of the same of what we've created rather than what's new. And so I invite people to be still and listen. Be still and allow yourself to receive the deeper intuition, to receive the deeper wisdom, to allow yourself to be guided. Now, somebody might say, but I'm not receiving anything. Okay, then start moving. Listen to the clues of the universe, because sometimes the clues of the universe don't come in loud siren bells or a billboard. It might just come in a gentle whisper or the sensation that you feel when you listen to or watch something or have a conversation with someone, that the universe speaks to you through a person and a side conversation you hear, in the airport. And if you really become still, what I have found is you will feel that life has a movement. It's like the river, right? Very gentle. Oh, something's kind of moving. It's kind of like, no, but it should be this way. No, but it's kind of like life is moving kind of over here. Things are showing me pointing. And so I think if we can become sensitive to the feeling sense of where life is kind of like moving and just start going in that direction. You don't have to know exactly where you're going in order to get to where you need to be. There is an intelligence that knows. And so if you're not sure what to do, what your purpose is, go in the direction of that movement. Go in the direction of the clues. Part of surrender is to allow life to lead you rather than you having to know. Allow life, this intelligent consciousness, to lead you, because it will lead you. And if you then take a step in the direction of what you love, the direction of what lights you up, the direction of where the clues are, follow the clues. What will often happen is as you take a step, life will show you what's next. You take another step, life will show you what's next. You take another step, life shows, and life starts getting revealed in the process of living itself. And each step leads to the next step, leads to the next step. And all of a sudden, you end up living into your purpose, living into your destiny, living into the manifestation. But what happens when you live this way, you're not creating from the limited program conditioning of what you know, which is based on the past. You're allowing the intelligence of life to guide you. And now what can be made manifest is not limited to what you know. And I think that's where the magic is. So you start going, you start moving, you start taking action and going through the doors that are kind of curious, where you're curious about, and you let life show you. And then if another door's open, you let life show you.
It's almost like that. The thought of what came to me was like being a passenger in a car. It's like you feel more in control driving, but this is like just take a seat that life can drive you somewhere that you might not be thinking of. Like you said, better than you can imagine can come in if you just, I think it's that fear that if we do that, or people that I know in this space. It's like we want something so great that we think if we take the back seat or we take our foot off the gas a little bit, that we might not get there.
Yes,
Because
that right there is the illusion.
yes.
Right
Okay.
there is the illusion. That is the ego's illusion. That's like, I've got to be the one that does everything.
Right.
Or else it won't get done. Like there's a quote from Jesus, and I would always, as a kid, study many sort of great enlightened beings. And, I think Jesus was a miracle worker. And I'm going to butcher this quote completely. I'm not a Bible scholar, but, he would perform these miracles. And there was something I always remembered. He would always say, it's not I that does the work. It's the Father that does the work through me. The Father, the consciousness, life, the universe that does the work. And I think that is the code. That is the secret. That is the magic, And if you look at Mandela, right? If you look at Mandela's life, that's not a life you could even script.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to go, on my goal list. Let's spend 27 years in prison. And then it's like, no,
right.
He just went in a direction. Should he have not spent 27 years in prison? Was there a better way? What if he didn't? Maybe it took 27 years in prison to develop, to ripen, to develop the mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual depth and to ripen his being so that he could vision and cultivate the compassion and bandwidth of forgiveness so that when he came out in a few short years, he was, he had remaining. His consciousness was so ripe that he could move humanity. What if he didn't? He would have come out maybe half-baked and the impact wouldn't have been the same.
Right.
And so I think something magical happens when I think we're so used to trying to create with our minds that we don't realize we often get so mistakenly attached to how we think things should be that we end up limiting life.
And we're so taught the personal development piece, there's a soul piece that I think you really are speaking to. And then there's the part of which people do have success, which is more the do, take massive action. And people are running and taking massive action without stopping and hearing these quiet whispers that you talk about of just hold on, just if you paused, you would save yourself so much agony or time. Because life is trying to speak to you. Like your book coming in, it's like, oh, this is big. The magic of surrender coming in your inbox. It's like if you're meditating,
it's a sign.
You have no idea. One day I'll share with you. It was so impeccable that everyone just stop everything we're doing and read this book. You speak a lot. You share these stories, of people like Mandela and people like Malala.
Malala,
yeah. And I'm wondering, just for my own self and just for other things, because we've all, I don't say everybody, but lots of people have had tragedy that have given us gifts. And yes, we judge the wrapping paper these gifts come in because it's painful, but we all enjoy getting to have the gift after, Do you think that it requires something, I don't say dark or heavy like that, to bring out greatness? Or can you develop that just by being more in surrender with ease of, I have a desire in my heart to make a difference. And then as you surrender, maybe you don't need to spend 27 years in jail. Or get shot in the face or all of these things. It's like,
look, I don't think there is one way that the universe manifests. Obviously, it can manifest in, infinite ways, infinite possibilities. But I do think that challenges tend to refine us and break us open. And break the ego. And, I can't speak for Malai, I have tremendous respect. But what I will say is, I think many times the degree to which we are ego identified is sometimes in proportion to the amount of suffering or the amount of challenge or the amount of cracking open by the universe we sometimes need. Because we wouldn't surrender otherwise,
The tough ones, right?
Yeah, the tough ones. Sometimes we need the
truck,
the Mack truck, sledgehammer, chainsaw from the universe. Otherwise, we wouldn't surrender. And so, I think that these challenges are really the gymnasium or the preparation that the universe puts us through to prepare us for our destiny, to develop the internal muscle. And so they're challenging, but I don't see them as bad. I kind of see them as, shall we say, opportunities to evolve and opportunities to grow. And I don't think a Mandela has ever emerged from like the Rockefeller family. I don't think a Gandhi has emerged from,
light and fluffy.
Definitely the Hilton family. No offense to anybody, but it sometimes takes the ego getting so cracked open that you're forced to surrender to more than your own ego. You're forced to surrender to truth and what's real, so that's when life can use you. Otherwise, ego is running the show. That's the difference.
And I guess when you're asking for something, you speak a lot in your book on what a lot of us can relate to that have a soul mission or a soul calling of really wanting something, and when we ask for that, life has to reorganize things to happen so you can relate to people. So when you read your story, you speak about your mother passing and what that felt like, you having that experience, like we can feel you reading that.
Yeah. Sometimes when you ask universe, help me love people more, then you're going to be sent some tests and challenges, right? To crack open those parts of you,
right.
For sure.
Can I read something from your book that I love so much? It's on page 170. It's, "Thank you, parents, even though you were different than I wanted you to be. I see now that you were the perfect parents for me in this life. Thank you to my ex, even though you broke my heart and caused me so much pain. I see now that you are the one who mirrored to me my relationship with myself and my own worth. Thank you, pain. Thank you, abuse. Thank you, loss. Thank you, tragedy. Thank you, poverty. Thank you, divorce. I know I resisted you in the moment, and I know that I wish I had another way, but thank you for what you have taught me. I will no longer resist."
That's surrender. I think when I first started writing the book on surrender in 2019, I had no idea what was coming. And so when you write a book about surrender, be prepared for the universe to
challenge you.
To challenge you, to crack you open, to teach you the different nuances of surrender. And so it so happened that I think probably when I was writing that, I'd been through something where I wrote the book, COVID hit, blew up my life like crazy, blew everything up. I was living in Los Angeles, never thought I would leave, and left Los Angeles, moved to Phoenix, which I never thought I would be in. That's a whole nother story. Gave up my apartment in LA. I cried. Gave up my office in LA. I cried. Ended up in Phoenix. I cried. Fell in love with a woman I thought I would marry, be together forever. All the signs of the universe, and it didn't work out. It was like the universe bringing me to my knees just when I thought I knew. And I remember being in such pain about everything that had happened, and such pain about the relationship. And I said, God, I don't understand. I don't understand. And it just felt like life cracking me open, and so I came through that to a place of forgiveness, forgiving the other person. And that's when I realized that even in the relationship, the other person, this woman, was playing her perfect divine role in my soul's evolution. And when I saw it from that perspective, I was so grateful, because through the breakup and through things not working out, it forced me to surrender. It forced me to let go. It forced me inside, and so I think many times we can't see it when things don't work out. We sometimes can't see it in the moment. And it can seem like the worst thing in the moment for our personalities, but for our souls, it's freedom. It's really freedom.
That's it with you. It's our minds can sometimes be really worked out in certain personal development things. And what I think yours is about, okay, that's one piece, but then there's the soul piece of
soul.
That's
Yeah,
you. It's
the way, yeah, thank you. Because I think for me, I believe that we're souls and we incarnate into this human experience. We're conditioned to believe we're these ego personality structures. So we go through life, or we tend to go through life on a very one-dimensional level. Make money. We judge success by what we attain, by what we achieve. Success, failure, good, bad. And we stay at the level of the story. But I think there is a cellular perspective that when we embrace the multidimensional cellular perspective that we're souls, we incarnate into this human experience in order to learn, to grow, and evolve. Then life is a university, and life is the classroom for our soul's evolution. Then for me, every experience, every relationship, everything becomes the curriculum for the growth of our soul's evolution. When we start seeing life like that, I think it can start shifting. And that's a surrender too. When you start seeing life like that, it can start shifting your relationship with life so that when you're going through shit, when you're going through pain and challenge and heartbreak, rather than being caught up in, why is this happening to me? And good and bad, right and wrong, victim, villain, you start shifting the perspective and asking yourself, well, if life is a school, why is this happening to me? And what is the lesson? And what is my soul seeking to learn? And why did I attract this experience? And this person that screwed me over is actually my teacher. And what am I seeking to work out? And I think when we surrender to focusing on the lesson inherent in any situation and relationship, and we learn the lesson, we transcend the dynamic, we transcend the situation, and we then graduate to a new experience. And that's the freedom.
And then it's a whole new next level growth and shaping,
Yes.
right? It
Yes.
sounds to me, I got this image of like an ice sculpture. It's like you're being shaped into that which you say that you want. You want to be, on a stage and impacting millions of people's lives. Well, you need to be shaped for that. And sometimes that comes in a delivery of a fantastic ex-husband. That is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Is there something you do I know we're getting close to wrapping up. Is there something that you do ritual wise, like to keep your mind, body, soul in shape? Is there something you do daily that keeps you sort of in that present moment and strong for this role, this journey, this?
One is very basic. It's going to sound funny. Just exercise, physical exercise every day. That doesn't sound like, big spiritual thing, but that for me provides just a grounded way of just processing things through my body. That's one. The other thing is more and more my prayer in life has become just something like universe. I ask that everything that is not in alignment with my highest be removed. I ask that everyone that is not in alignment with my highest be removed. I ask that only the highest can remain. And that more and more has become my prayer, my affirmation, my invocation. And I found that sometimes we don't know what should be or what shouldn't be. When you invoke the highest good in a situation and let the highest be done. I have seen people just literally disappear out of my life the next day. Right? And so I think when our attention is on the highest good, then you're not limiting life. You're truly available and you're just clearing the space. And so that intention I found creates a lot of opening.
That's amazing. It's such a good reminder too of, as I mentioned, going through this book or halfway or through chapter 3 and 4, all that beginning part. It was just like, that's it. This is no more, no longer.
Yes.
And trust. The whole thing that I hope people get from this is when you say that, everything that's not in alignment, go. Trust that what's going is meant for you and feel through it or exercise through it.
Yeah. Feel through. Let it go. I really believe that you can't miss what is yours. And you can't have what is not. And so if something or someone moves out of your life, it's not yours. It's not meant to be yours. How do we know? Because it's not there, And so it might require some grieving. It might require some feeling. It might require some processing through. But I think if we can really trust, at least this is a belief I have, that the universe is always working for my highest good, even if I can't see it right now. It's always working for my highest good. So even when something moves out of my life or releases from my life or somebody exits my life, I really do my best to just trust, okay, if the universe is always working for my highest good, that must mean something or someone
this was meant to happen
to show up. Something or someone better is about to show up. Now, so when things don't work out, what we tend to do as human beings is we collapse, we contract, we control, right? Or we judge, thinking we're cursed. And so I say, we try to make a meaning about what this situation means. Most of the meaning that we make actually limits the situation and disconnects us from surrender. I invite people to, and here's, I think, a key quality of surrender, to get curious. I think curiosity is an openness. It's an availability. It's a willingness to embrace, like, I don't know why this is happening, rather than it's happening because of this.
That person's a jerk.
That person's a jerk. Something's wrong with me. I'm not enough. It's just, you know what? I don't know why this didn't work out. I'm not sure why that went, but I'm open to life showing. I'm open to finding out what's about to happen, what more amazing thing, what interest. I'm available. And so I think curiosity is also a key quality in the process of living surrender, which is not always easy.
Right. I love the last little part you said. Even if you can surrender 5 or 10% more today, just be open to what life wants. Because some people, we all probably have different degrees listening to this of what we're comfortable with or what we are willing to do. Some of us would just tear everything apart and be like, let's jump right in. But I loved that. Even if you bring 5% more in a day, you're already moving more with the flow than before.
Yes, for sure.
Well, I thank you tremendously being here. Your book was amazing, and who you are, and even your YouTube. So if you have anything final to say, if not, let us know where people can find you, where they can find your book and your website and just more.
Yeah, the book is, the paperback's available on Amazon. My website, it's my name, Kute, KuteBlackson.com. Twice a year, I do an event to Bali, 12 days, where I take people through a deep 12-day immersive process. That's in Boundless, www.boundlessblissbali.com. Instagram, Kute Blackson. Facebook, Kute Love Now. I just invite people to maybe leave people with this thought that just remember today and reflect on that you're going to die, and meditate on your death. Not as a morbid thing, because the truth is you, me, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad Ali, everybody is born and everybody dies. There is no escape. And sometimes we live like we're going to live forever. And the truth is, none of us know when that moment will come. And so I invite people to hold death close, feel your death, meditate on your death, not as a morbid thing, but as a invitation to remember how sacred each moment is. And I think the degree to which we embrace death is a degree to which we can truly embrace living and embrace the preciousness of life. And if death came right now, would you be ready? If not, why not? What's unsaid? What's ungiven? What's unforgiven? What's unlived? And how would you need to, if you were to feel, like how would you need to live in such a way that you have no regrets? Because when you die, you can't go to God and say, can I get a refund?
Yeah.
From those 2 years that I wasted in that job, that I wasted in that relationship is gone. And so how would you need to live? Hold death close, feel your death, and use that to inspire you to live life with more authenticity and realness and urgency.
When you start to see that death part and you're like, ooh, I'm not ready to go, people avoid feeling that or even thinking of it, where you say, hold it close, because they A, think they're going to create it, B, get scared of it happening. Why are they thinking of that? You travel everywhere. And I love some of the stories in there of the airport and just like wherever life take me. How does that not scare you, cause anxiety, whatever it is, when you hold that death, that could happen close to you? What is
it's not, here's the thing. It's not that it could happen. It's happening right now.
I more mean like your life cut like
yes,
tomorrow or like what?
But here's the thing. I think we have to face it rather than trying to avoid it and not think about it and control it. And because it could happen tomorrow. And everybody that did happen for didn't know it was going to happen. It could happen. And I think rather than avoiding it and trying to control it and run from it, just saying it could happen tomorrow. Yes, it could. We can live and pretend like it won't, but it could. And not that it will, but it could. And I think if you can just be with that and accept that reality, like it could. I mean, aliens could walk through my apartment today and, the thing could fall. It could. Doesn't mean it will, but it could. And I think if we can just embrace it, welcome it, and meet it and get into relationship with it without trying to resist it. To me, that's part of what surrender is. Then I find that you can make peace with it and you can begin freeing yourself from it. It's often the resistance or the denial of it that creates the anxiety. It's like, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And we try to do all these things in our life. Let me run around. Let me busy myself. Let me go to, the farmer's market. Let me do shopping. Let me do this. Let me do that. So I don't really remember that it might happen. It's like, it's still there.
Yeah.
So if we can just say, okay, it's going to happen. I'm dying right now. I could die. I hope I live a long life. I don't have a death wish, but yeah, it's the nature of life. And if you just face that, it's like, wow. So if that was the case, then let me make sure I live each moment with a fullness. Let me make sure I live each moment with 100%, because I don't like every moment that I waste. It's not a moment I can have back. And like in the pretending like it's never going to happen, when it happens, we act all surprised. In the pretending that it's never going to happen, we often waste so much time on meaningless, trivial stuff. But if we face it and say, I hope I live a long life. I'd love to live a long life, but it's there. And then I think it reminds us of like, wow, I'm wallowing in my shit right now. I'm arguing about petty stuff right now. Is this how I is this how I want to die? Is this it? Like if you knew the date and time of your death, God said, okay, here's a piece of paper, date and time of your death, and you looked inside, would that change how you're living right now? Most of us, it probably would shift some things.
Me too, yeah.
It would shift. For me, it would shift some things. And so I think when we just have the nature of reality close, so yeah, it's here, then I think it can bring us into a sober relationship with the moment, so that we see how precious this moment is and how we actually don't have time to waste. And I hope everybody lives a long life. But I am a believer that the quality of one's life is not the length or the quality. The quality of one's life is the degree to which you live each moment fully. And that, for me, is real success.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. It's been a pleasure.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Extraordinary Living Podcast. For show notes for this episode and all past episodes, head over to JackieSenatori.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Until then, take care and be well.